Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're journeying into some really dark corners of human history. We'll be exploring three chilling true crime cases from the last couple of centuries. And these aren't just sensational stories, They're unsettling glimpses into extreme human behavior. They really reveal different facets of historical justice, societal pressures, and even the origins of psychopathy that still resonate today. We'll explore the gruesome secret of a Moroccan cobbler, the fierce love that led a Japanese geisha to murder, and the terrifying reign of the vampire of Dusseldorf.
Yeah, and these figures, they're separated by vast distances, different cultures, but they left this indelible mark through their horrifying actions. What we can really glean from their stories is how society, responded to such profound darkness and the varied, often quite brutal forms of justice enacted back then.
Right. Our first stop takes us to Marrakesh, late 19th century. An ancient labyrinthine city. Imagine, vibrant souks, hidden passages. And then, tragically, young women start disappearing without a trace. For years, families were just desperately searching, retracing steps, but their daughters, sisters, wives simply vanished. And the trail, disturbingly often, it led to this seemingly ordinary shoemaker, Haj Mohammed Mesfoué. His shop was small, he did shoe repair, and there was an elderly woman, Anna, doing dictation services, a place of considerable daily trade. But beneath that, mundane facade, Mesfoué harbored something profoundly sinister. His method. Well, it started with this deceptive act of hospitality. He'd offer customers a bakshish, just a small refreshment, maybe cardamom tea, spiced coffee, things like that. For his chosen victims, though, these drinks were laced. Powerful natural sedatives. They'd lose consciousness quickly. And once a young woman was unconscious, Mesfoué would drag her to the back of his shop. What followed was, it's just an unspeakable act of depravity. He would dismember and mutilate his victims. He even carved intricate symbols into their flesh sometimes, and then buried their remains in this earthen cellar beneath his shop. In total, Mesfoué was responsible for the disappearance of 36 young women. 36. His reign of terror only ended when the family of his final victim, they just refused to give up hope. They burst into his shop. And there, they discovered the remains of 20 slain women in the pit. Another 16 found buried in a garden outside.
It's a stark reminder, isn't it? Not just of his individual depravity, but how easily these horrors can be concealed. And Anna, his assistant, complicit, apparently, for jewelry taken from the victims. It highlights a chilling aspect of human nature, but also, the precariousness of life for maybe marginalized women back then. Survival could mean terrible compromises, even becoming an accessory to something unimaginable. Tragically, Anna herself actually died during torture while authorities tried to get more confessions.
Mesfoué's trial then became this huge public spectacle. Local judges, initially, they wanted some agonizing punishment, maybe even nailing him to planks, leaving him to bake in the sun. But international pressure on the Moroccan magistrates pushed for something seen as more humane beheading. But the citizens of Marrakesh, they were enraged. They demanded far more. So to appease the public, Mesfoué was first condemned to daily public lashings. For an entire month, his flayed flesh was then doused with vinegar. Imagine. Yet even that prolonged agony wasn't enough for the furious mob. Weeks later, as his final sentence approached, unrest just spread again through the city. So on the day of his execution, a different, more terrifying punishment was announced. Mesfoué was to be immured. This meant, being confined to a tiny, inescapable space, basically his tomb, bricked up alive inside a wall. Immurement. It was a harrowing punishment, really designed to maximize agony and the public spectacle. It's not like being buried alive, which often results in a quicker death by asphyxiation. Immurement meant a slow, agonizing demise, starvation, exposure. Victims would literally slowly consume themselves, their tongues swelling, making breathing almost impossible, often descending into madness before death finally, grimly, arrived.
And that public sentiment, that desire for prolonged agony even after a death sentence, it really forces you to confront the nature of retribution in historical justice systems. Was immurement truly a humane alternative, like some international observers might have argued? Or was it just a more psychologically torturous way to satisfy a furious mob? It definitely highlights profound cultural differences in how justice was perceived.
Mesfoué screamed, howled for mercy as they chained him inside this chamber. It was tiny, just 2 feet deep, 2 feet wide, 6 feet high, built into the thick walls of the city's main bazaar. The crowd, filled with his victims' families, hurled insults. They laughed as the first bricks sealed his tomb. Then they fell silent, only to better hear his screams of horror from inside. Locals said his cries, sobbing, begging, screaming, could be heard for 3 days straight before finally falling silent. And many in the crowd apparently felt he'd gotten off too lightly, perished too quickly for such heinous crimes. Okay, so from the ancient streets of Marrakesh, let's transport ourselves to Japan. Mid-19th century. This is the story of Yoshi. Born in 1845, Yura Peninsula, she rose from pretty humble origins, became one of the most famous sought-after geishas in Tokyo. Her beauty, her spirit, it earned her the nickname Yorashi, meaning storm in the night. But despite this luxurious lifestyle, Yoshi lived in what you could only really call a gilded cage. She was under the strict control of Kobayashi Kempei, a wealthy financier. He wasn't just controlling, he was cruel, often physically abusive. Her life was entirely at his whim, forbidden from having any other clients without his express permission. Her life took a dramatic turn one evening. She was in her mid-20s, attended a kabuki play, and there she met the dashing actor Arashi Rikaku, known as Tokyo's own Casanova, apparently. After just a brief conversation, she found herself deeply, madly in love. So Yoshi began secretly exchanging letters with Rikaku. He reciprocated her feelings, and they hatched this desperate plot to elope, but they knew Kempei would pursue them relentlessly. If they wanted to be truly free, he needed to be, well, dealt with. On March 2nd, 1871, Yoshi laced Kempei's porridge with rat poison. She then just feigned ignorance as he slowly, painfully expired. And for a time, Yoshi avoided suspicion. No one immediately suspected her. However, the truth started to unravel when Yoshi became pregnant with Rikaku's child. Rumors started swirling. Authorities quickly deduced, well, only Yoshi would have had access to Kempei's food that day. Provincial law enforcement apprehended her, found her hiding out at Rikaku's home. Both were taken into custody.
The social context here is really crucial, you know? A high-profile case like this, involving a famous geisha and an actor, it would absolutely captivate the public imagination, turn into this sensationalized narrative. And it wasn't just personal cruelty from Kempei, it reflected that deep power imbalance within the Hanamachi, the geisha districts. Geishas, even famous ones like Yoshi, were often bound by contracts that were almost like servitude. Her gilded cage was very real, and escaping it, well, it might seem to demand extreme measures.
Yoshi was sentenced to death for Kempei's slaying, but she was permitted to live until her baby was born. Rikaku, surprisingly, received a much lighter sentence, just 3 years for his involvement. 3 days after giving birth, on March 28, 1872, Yoshi was led from her prison cell to Tokyo's execution grounds. When asked for any last words, she simply stated, "Just cause demands repayment." This statement, it seems like acceptance, but it was widely interpreted as this chilling lack of remorse, suggesting Kempei's beatings had given her just cause for revenge, which she had now repaid in full. After reciting a short poem, the executioner brought down his katana, severed her head. Her head was then displayed publicly for several days, serving as both grim warning and a public spectacle.
Yeah, that public display. Following a sensational trial with a geisha and an actor, it's fascinating, isn't it? This case really became a kind of moralizing narrative for the public, especially considering those power dynamics in the geisha world. Yoshi's defiance, even in death, probably struck a chord, and her beauty likely fueled that morbid fascination. It transformed her from simply a killer into this legendary dokufu, that term for femme fatales who used poison. This case really makes you think about the line between passion and obsession, and how society interprets acts of vengeance, particularly when a woman is seen as both victim and perpetrator.
Yoshi's tale absolutely captivated Tokyo. Sensationalized accounts of her life sold like crazy as fast as they could be printed. The truth got kind of muddled with fiction. She became one of the nation's most infamous dokufu. People were just enthralled, whether by morbid fascination or, the idea of a love so strong someone was willing to kill for it. Okay, our final chilling account brings us to Germany. To a man so depraved, he became known as the Vampire of Dusseldorf, Peter Kürten. Born in 1883, first of 13 children, into a home just marked by a cruel father. His abuse often played out right in front of the entire family. The father was even jailed for it for 18 months in 1897. Peter started exhibiting disturbing behavior very young. At 5, his mother caught him trying to drown a playmate. His first actual taste of extinguishing human life came just before his 10th birthday. He was on a homemade raft on a lake and another boy fell off. Peter, instead of helping, pushed the struggling boy's head underwater, held him there until the thrashing stopped, watched with pleasure, apparently, as the body bobbed. He later claimed it was an accident. As a teenager, Peter dropped out of school, drifted into petty crime. After a girlfriend refused his advances, he flew into this rage, vented his frustration by slaughtering livestock on a nearby farm. He used various sharp and blunt farming tools.
What's really striking about Kürten's early life is how consistently these violent tendencies manifested. It reveals a clear progression of psychopathic traits. Even without modern profiling, these behaviors show this terrifying lack of empathy, a clear escalating pattern of violence right from childhood, just a stark example of extreme psychological pathology.
During his military service, he found this special way to entertain himself, setting fire to buildings in areas popular with homeless people. hoping to roast them alive. He confessed later to 24 acts of arson, attempted desertion too, spent 8 years in military prisons, just stewing apparently in this desire for vengeance against a society he felt had wronged him. When he was released in 1913, he was truly a monster unleashed. His first murder as an adult, 9-year-old Christine Klein. Strangled her unconscious, then sliced her throat. The very next day he went back to the scene. Listened with pride as people discussed the monster who did it. He even visited her grave, handled the fresh dirt with pleasure. His murderous rage just intensified in 1929. He ambushed an older woman, stabbed her 24 times with scissors, some wounds hit bone. Less than a week later, strangled 9-year-old Rosa Olga, unconscious, then descended into this frenzy of savage butchery, set her body on fire. Days after that, brutally attacked Rudolf Scheer, stabbed him over 20 times, gouged out his eyes, and he'd often return to the crime scenes, feigning ignorance, chatting with police officers. He lured Maria Hahn into a secluded meadow, stabbed her to death, deliberately prolonged her suffering for almost an hour, just for his own entertainment. He even taunted law enforcement with anonymous letters describing where to find her remains. Switched up his weapon to confuse the investigation. On August 23rd, he cornered 2 young sisters, led the 5-year-old Gertrude Hamake into a secluded field and strangled her. When her older sister returned, Peter lunged at her, sank his teeth deep into her throat, and apparently guzzled down the blood which seeped from her wound. This act, witnessed by the surviving sister, cemented that horrific nickname, the Vampire of Dusseldorf. His reign of terror just continued. More stabbings, hammer attacks, child murders. His downfall finally came when a woman he'd attacked, Maria Budlik, described the incident in a handwritten letter to a friend. But due to an incorrect address, the postmaster opened it. Recognized similarities to the vampire killings, alerted the police. Peter Kürten was arrested just days later. With a mountain of evidence stacked against him, he confessed, admitted to being the Vampire of Dusseldorf. Detailed a grand total of 68 separate attacks. 68. Offered no apology whatsoever. Instead, he justified his actions as striking back at a world he felt had horribly wronged him. Added that he found the sight of his victims' insights thrilling beyond words. He even confirmed drinking so much of Maria Hahn's blood that he vomited shortly after.
Kürten's chilling lack of remorse. It reveals this profound pathology, doesn't it? A complete disconnect from human empathy that just challenges our very understanding of cruelty. It's not just psychological in the conventional sense, it's a chilling glimpse into the extreme end of antisocial personality, where the suffering of others isn't just tolerated, it's actively enjoyed. His confessions show a man who found pleasure in destruction, believing society owed him vengeance.
At his trial in 1931, he was held in an iron cage to protect him from enraged relatives. Peter Kürten initially pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but after a few days, he told his defense attorney to plead guilty. The judge asked Peter if he felt any remorse. His response was chilling, unequivocal. I have none. Never did I think to myself that what I did was bad. The punishments I have suffered had destroyed all my feelings as a human being. That was why I had no pity for my victims, and thinking back to all the details is not at all unpleasant for me. In fact, I'd rather enjoy it. He was found guilty of 9 murders, 7 attempted murders, sentenced to the guillotine. On July 2nd, 1931, as he voluntarily placed his head into the guillotine, Peter Kürten calmly asked the prison psychiatrist, "Doctor, after my head is chopped off, will I still be able to hear the sound of my own blood gushing from the stump of my neck? That would be the pleasure to end all pleasures." Moments later, the blade fell, ending the life of the man who had truly earned the title, the Vampire of Dusseldorf. These stories, unsettling as they are, they offer this chilling glimpse into the depths of human behavior, reminding us that true horror often lies not in fiction, but in the harrowing reality of our past. We hope these accounts have left you with, well, much to ponder about the darkness that can reside within us, and the historical, the societal context that shape these terrifying events.
Yeah, examining these historical tragedies really encourages critical thinking about how societies define justice, how they react to extreme violence, and those enduring questions surrounding human cruelty. It reminds us that understanding the past, even its darkest moments, is just crucial for understanding ourselves.
If you found yourself captivated, maybe horrified, by these tales from the shadows, we encourage you to like this video, share it with fellow enthusiasts of the macabre, and please subscribe to our channel, Horror Docx, for more journeys into the unsettling. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay curious, and remember, the deepest